Point-and-shoot cameras have an obvious flaw. They can't capture depth of field. They attempt to make everything perfectly in focus. And while these trees and rocks are gorgeous in the background, they're distracting from the focal point of the image, which is the child. A high-end camera, one with changeable lenses, can actually focus on the foreground, blurring out the background to make the subject more compelling. So what we're going to do is apply a filter to the background in order to make it look as if this was taken with a high-end camera. In this image, I have a selection saved for you. So I'll go to Select, Load Selection, and there's a channel called Child. I'll click OK. And before I want to run this effect on the background, I want to make sure I can edit it. If I run off a proof and the background looks too blurry or too artificial, I want to step that down. Or if I was too cautious and the blur is too subtle, I want to be able to increase it later after closing the file. So I'll go to the Filter menu and Convert for Smart Filters. I'll click OK, and it lets me know that it's converting this layer to a smart object. This icon in the lower right corner indicates that there's a protected original version of the image inside this layer. I'll double-click on the layer name and name it so it's not layer 0. I hate seeing that. And then I'll select the inverse. The child was selected, but I want to apply this effect to the background. After selecting the inverse, I'll choose Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And there you can see I've got a nice, subtle effect that I can increase and make very artificial, or decrease and make a bit more subtle. In fact, the marching ants, the selection lines, can be distracting, so you can choose View Extras to hide those edges, to play with your Gaussian blur settings without the distraction of those lines. I'm happy with this. I'll click OK. And here I can click the eye icon next to Gaussian blur to see before and after. Now, a very important note about smart objects. There's a bug bite on the child's head, and I'd like to fix that because it's distracting. If I try to go to my favorite patch tool and make a selection and drag to new skin, it's going to warn me I have to rasterize the smart object, so I couldn't edit my Gaussian blur. Do you want to do that? No, I don't. So I'm going to hit Cancel. And it's telling me I can't use the patch tool. That's okay. I will deselect and double-click the smart object. By double-clicking the smart object, you get to that embedded original image, which is how they got the blur filter to be editable. So I'll click OK, and here's the original protected photo. Because it's a smart object, that blur isn't ever permanently applied. But my goal is to take this bug bite, select it, drag to new skin, and it's removed. I could do a little bit more cleanup if I so choose. We'll leave the mole because very often people who are in the color correction or photo retouching industry don't realize what is a blemish or skin imperfection versus what is a mole or beauty mark and should be there. So I know that should be there, and I will leave it. I could zoom in with Control+ or Command+ and do other common retouching tasks, like going to the Dodge tool and lightening the exposure a little bit, and making my brush size about the size of his eyes, and just lightening a bit so you could actually see the eye color. Because the eyes are cast in shadow, it's difficult to see them, and by just dodging a little bit, you make the eyes more alive or more awake. Often I like to do Command-0 or Control-0 and check myself to make sure I haven't gone too far, but that creates a nice little glint in the eye. So this Layer 0 PSB is the embedded smart object. I'm going to click the close box, and yes, I'll save or permanently commit to these changes. Here is my updated original, or actually my updated version, and I can hit Control-Z or Command-Z before, after. Before, bug bite and the eyes are kind of dark. After, perfect skin, and now there's a little light or glint in the eye. So this video should have shown you how to make artificial depth of field focusing on the subject of the photo and blurring out the distracting yet beautiful background. Just because a scene is picturesque doesn't mean you want everything in focus. You want to make sure that you're correcting your images thoughtfully to convey the message that the subject of this photo was the child. So give Gaussian blur and smart filters a try on a few of your own images, and you'll have the look of a high-end photo regardless of the device that it came from.